watch at your own risk.
Sometimes we think that circumstances control our lives. Sometimes we feel like we don't have much control over how long we live or how we're going to impact our lives. But 15% increase in life expectancy is like, is a drastic change, right?
The people of the town pelted him with stones, and it's recorded that his shoes were filled with blood. Imagine going through that.
Negativity only has one door, but positivity, the possibilities are endless. There's so many doors to positivity.
Whatever the circumstances, whatever the life that we're living, why don't we control how we look at it? Why don't we control how we interact with it, how we approach it? I'm not going to let any opportunity go to waste.
All right, welcome to the third episode of Grow. We're going to get into a very interesting and uplifting topic, so to speak, quite literally.
Yeah.
I think our audience will get tired of our puns by the end of the season.
They're going to keep coming. So if you're going to tune into this podcast, be ready for the jokes.
So today, again, jokes aside, positivity is the topic of discussion. And we're going to be getting into the psychology behind it, the neuroscience, the behavioral science, but not so much. So we're not going to delve too much into that, but also give our viewers our listeners rather, something to take home, something that they can actually do in their lives to create more positivity, to create, an uplifting atmosphere in their lives.
Yeah. So I'm positive everyone's going to like this episode. I warned everybody.
I'm afraid that, we're going to
watch at your own risk.
We're going to chase everybody away. But let's keep the dad jokes going. And
100%.
Let's get into it. So we're going to obviously look at first what positivity does for us, right? Positivity is feeling uplifted, being optimistic about life, smiling instead of frowning. All these things are what are, signs of positivity.
You make a good point, because even if I think about it, if you just think about positivity, sometimes you might think it's just positive thinking, just think positively. But even just looking into this more and through life, you realize that positivity isn't just about thinking a certain way, whereas it's a big part of it, but it's also about how you live your life. Being positive in every single facet of your life, the way you think, the way you act, the way you interact with people, the way you approach situations. There's this one thing where someone said this to me once and it really stuck with me. And I feel like it applies in so many different aspects of life. But he basically said, look, he held up his finger and he said, you're looking at it and I'm looking at it. We're looking at the exact same thing. Yeah. But what we're seeing, if I ask you to describe what you see, and then I describe what I see, would be two completely different descriptions. But we're looking at the same thing. But if I change my vantage point and come to where you're at and you come to where I'm at, then we would be able to see, right, what we're talking about. Sometimes what I've realized, positivity is all about just changing where your perspective and where you're at, right? Because the same thing, if you look at it from a different angle, then you could have a completely different perspective on it, completely different take on it. So positivity, a lot of it has to do with this mindful approach of making sure that I am going to be positive. I'm going to approach this issue or this phase in my life or whatever the case might be. I'm going to tell myself, I'm going to make sure that I approach it positively. And I think starting off the conversation of positivity, for me, that's where it starts. Yeah. This mindful, deliberate approach that I'm going to make sure that I choose positivity over negativity.
Yeah, and I think that's where it starts. You have to take a step yourself first and have, a sense of willpower within you to make a conscious decision that I'm going to look at this a different way. Whether it's failure, and obviously we're going to get into how to combat adversity and failure. But in the face of failure, how do you react? Do you react with it that, okay, now I've lost, now there's no way forward? Or are you going to look at it in a way where I'm going to try, acknowledge the fact that, okay, you're going through something difficult. This is hard, right? But it will get better, things will get better. And obviously being grounded in reality is also important. But I want to get into, some of the benefits that we see right out of the door when it comes to positivity. And one that, is commonly seen, but also I guess we'll add some more nuances to it, is the resilience and how it impacts our mental health, right? So, in recent times, we've seen not the increase of mental health, I guess.
This is more of an
disorders.
awareness about it,
we
that
just
it exists, and recognizing it, acknowledging it.
Yeah, exactly. So we're becoming more aware of those issues that exist, and we're learning of different ways to avoid them, even though they've existed from, millennia. So obviously, one of the things that is, seen in people who are more positive is lower rates of depression and anxiety, obviously, right? And then you'll see that when we were talking about adversity, when they're faced with something difficult, then, they're going to look at it from a different perspective. I was just reading a book by Victoria Arlen, and it's a memoir basically, and it's called Locked In: The Will to Survive and the Resolve to Live. She was about 11 years old when she was like hit with these two very rare conditions, which left her basically in a vegetative state for 4 years. So she was in bed for 4 years, not being able to do much. She was conscious, but she wasn't, able to do anything. And after this experience, she made a conscious decision that after that 4-year period where she sort of saw signs of, recovery, she made this conscious decision that she's not going to let her life go to waste. And she went on to getting better, through hard work, determination, and having this positive outlook.
Yeah.
And she went on to, becoming an Olympic gold medalist as well,
wow.
right? So it's not just about, this is the power of positivity. It's not just about overcoming the difficulties, but taking yourself to new heights. And I think that's where positivity really helps our brain overcome these hurdles.
And it's interesting because I really wanted to understand, how does the brain function when it comes to positivity and negativity? And I'm going to sound really smart here, right? I looked at the Harvard Medical School.
Okay.
Great. So, basically, they talk about neuroplasticity. Look, for example, I feel like we use this example a lot, but it just makes sense, right? With your muscles, you physically, right? If you don't use them, or if you're lazy or whatever the case might be,
You're gonna lose them.
You're gonna lose them. But the more repeated actions, more repeated exercise is gonna help them become stronger and grow. And a podcast is called Grow.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna let any opportunity go to waste. But the brain works in the exact same way. Look, we go through events in our lives that might be traumatic. We have some negative, experiences in life. That could be the loss of someone, or whatever the case might be. Those will build certain neural pathways in our brain that cause us to think negatively. What positive thinking does is that it creates a new neural pathway or new neural pathways in our brain that allow for positive thinking. It's basically like,
you're training yourself, basically.
You're training
right?
yourself, right, to think a certain way. And the more you do it, the more neural pathways that you build that are geared towards positivity. And then it's not even something that you have to sort of consciously do. It's because it's so inherent, it's become so ingrained, you've trained your brain a certain way. Now, when you approach a situation in life, you're looking at it positively. That's your sort of go-to. That's your instinct now has become to look at things positively. Yeah. And when I was looking at this, just looking at it sort of from like the behind the scenes view, what's going on in our brain? It's, to break something takes a second. To build something and to, repair it, could take much longer. Yeah. And it's sort of the same thing with positivity and negativity. It's so easy to be negative. And sometimes we'll resort to it.
It's an escape route, essentially is what it is. It's avoidance. That's what they call it, right? Like you become negative because, about a situation because you want to avoid it, right? So when you're thinking about, okay, what am I going through? I'm in trouble. To cope with it, the easy way out or the cop out is to think negatively.
Exactly. And so but the same thing, if you build that positivity, you tell yourself, you know what? I'm not going to let this circumstance dictate how I think about it. I'm going to be the one. I'm going to take control. So much of our society, so much of the world we live in, social media is about take control. Yeah. All right, let's take control then. Whatever the circumstances, whatever the life that we're living, the things that are happening around us, Why don't we control how we look at it? Why don't we control how we interact with it, how we approach it? Or even with people. Does it automatically mean that if someone is negative towards you, someone's not very kind towards you, you know what? All right, fine then. I'm not going to be kind to you either. Okay, yeah, sure, you can do that, no problem, right? That's up to you. But what about taking a different route and saying that I don't care how other people are towards me, I have a certain standard, I have a certain way of doing things. That's a positive mindset, that I'm going to make sure that I treat everyone a certain way, I treat situations a certain way, right? You fail, you're trying to start up a business, it didn't work the first time. All right, you're going to give up, be like, oh, I can't do it. Oh, the world's out to get me. Oh, the little guy can't win. All right, sure, you can make all these excuses. Or you're going to be like, all right, didn't work out, let me try again, or let me try a different way, right? So again, this constant positive thinking, and it's not easy. Don't want it to make it seem like, oh, we just do it and it's as easy as that. It's tough. But the rewards of that, as you were mentioning, the physical benefits, simply put, the Mayo Clinic, we can talk about all the physical benefits. Positive thinking has been, studies have shown, leads to 15% longer life expectancy.
Yeah, and that's a lot. Like sometimes we think that, circumstances control our lives, right? Sometimes we feel like we don't have much of much control over how long we live or how we're going to impact our lives, but 15% is a lot. Like 15% increase in life expectancy is like, is a drastic
100%,
change, right?
100%.
You're talking like 65 to like 80, right?
Yeah.
That's 15 extra years with your family, 15 extra years with, experiencing this life and making an impact in the world, right? And, another thing that I came across, which was interesting, was that this impact, this increase in life expectancy is irrespective of your health conditions and your socioeconomic status. So whether you're unhealthy or not, and whether you are, in the lower class, the middle class, or in the upper class, that doesn't, decide, or that doesn't really affect the situation or your life. Whether you're positive or not actually makes a difference.
It's, you see these different videos, or you might even know someone. It's horrible when someone has a, disease, like whether it's cancer or whatever the case might be. But then, again, we were talking about perspective. When people meet these people who have these sort of what could become a terminal illness, or, your life expectancy is, doctors have said not looking great, they have this new perspective on life. Yeah. Like, okay, if I have this limited amount of time, I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to try and make the most positive impact that I can, do the most with what time I have. And when people meet them, they become inspired. Yeah. Because, generally, we might be like, oh, life's hard. There's so many struggles, financial struggles at work, life's just generally hard, whatever the case might be. But you meet these people and they just like, okay, all of these things, they can all fall away. You have the gift of life. Yeah. Just thinking about the fact that, people who will say like every day waking up is a blessing. It's true. Imagine having that sort of a mindset and starting your day off that way, or that's how your life is, that you make it so that any way, shape, or form that it takes, you look at things in a positive way. So if we change our perspective, we look at life a certain different way. And positive thinking, again, according to the Mayo Clinic, positivity reduces your cortisol level, which is a stress hormone. There's enough stresses in the world as it is, right? And it's not to say that you're going to be positive and all your stresses are going to wash away. No, they're still going to be there. It's just about how you handle them, right? What you're doing with them and how you're approaching them.
Yeah, and you were talking about terminal illnesses. There's so many illnesses now that, that come about due to the different practices that we, indulge in on a daily basis. And I was reading a study by a cardiologist, Alan Rosansky, in 2019, and he showed that patients first I would say that prevention is the best form of damage control. So preventing damage before it actually takes place. So firstly, people who are more positive are less likely, 35% less likely to have cardiovascular disease. And that's a huge percentage, especially like if I look at my own situation where we're South Asian, right? So we come from a background where our ancestors suffered from these conditions,
Yeah,
cardiovascular
genetically,
disease.
we're all like predisposed. in
Both
some
from
way,
my
yeah.
maternal and paternal side, like, I'm at risk of cardiovascular disease, but positivity, just having a positive outlook reduces all the impacts that your body's having on your heart, and it reduces that chance by 35%. And then you went on to mention, obviously, the fact that other people get inspired. And so I think that another huge benefit of having a positive outlook, being more positive about life, is inspiring others. Positivity begets positivity, You smile at somebody and they automatically, they feel happy and they smile back. And it goes back to something very profound that Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, said, that smiling at your brother or sister is an act of charity. Yeah. And I see that when a simple gesture of a smile can cause so much happiness. I remember I was actually watching one Coca-Cola ad where there was this man who walks in a bus, and he's just watching something on his phone. It's a very packed bus, and he's watching something on his phone, and he starts laughing uncontrollably. And everyone around him, they're like looking around. Initially, they find it a little bit strange that he's laughing so loud. He had his headphones in, obviously he's in his own. But what they were trying to show was, and Coca-Cola is really good at this because they're not just a drink. They brand like happiness, right? So the way that they showed happiness was that this person was laughing, and the whole bus started laughing, not at him, but with him. Right? And so it was sort of cool to see how a simple laugh or a simple gesture of like a smile can, it radiates that impact of positivity and affects the people around you.
By the way, we're not sponsored by Coca-Cola.
Yeah, I know.
Otherwise, we would be laughing too.
Yeah.
And our studio might look a little different.
Yes.
No, but it's interesting because Barbara Fredrickson talks about something similar actually, which is the Broaden and build theory.
Okay.
And it's almost so simple when you think about it, but positivity, like you mentioned, positivity begets positivity. A positive outlook, she says, broadens your horizons, right? Because negativity leads to tunnel vision, right? It's that, okay, this is the way it is. I can't help it. Can't do anything about it. This is horrible. This is terrible. Woe is me. All these sorts. But a positive mindset, you're opening up your own opportunities because you're able to look at things for more than just what they are. Even if something is apparently negative in the moment, you see it for potential. You see it that, this doesn't have to be the only way that this thing is. Beautiful example that comes to mind, which is that when the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, went to a place called Taif, and he was there, in peace, just to talk to the people, spread the message of peace and love. But the people there, they're opposed to him. They're, the people of the town pelted him with stones, and it's recorded that his shoes were filled with blood. Yeah. Imagine going through that, right? Like naturally you're like, what is this, right? Like a normal person would be like, what is this?
And that's just one of many instances
exactly.
in his life, right?
And so later after that incident, as he's sitting there, the narration goes that an angel came to him and said, look, these people that just wronged you this way, that just hurt you, physically injured you, shed your blood, I can destroy these people. Now his response was that, no, I don't want that, because who knows, maybe their future generations will come to recognize this message of peace and this message that he was preaching of Islam. Like if he was negative in that moment, he could have been like, yeah, you know what, there's no hope for these people. Look at the way they treated me. Yeah. But because he was such a forward-thinking, a positive-thinking person, and he's a beautiful, perfect example for everyone, he showed that, look, even in a situation which seemed impossible, he saw potential. And that was as a result of positive thinking. So imagine you applied that same principle to any and all facets of life, right? A business idea didn't work out. Well, that doesn't mean that that's it, that's the end of the road. If you have a positive mindset, okay, that didn't work out. Maybe I learned some lessons here. And it's one of the previous episodes we talked about the growth mindset, right? Which is that you can look at things like you have a choice. You can look at things, and be like, this is the way it seems right now, but it could develop. A fixed mindset would be like, it is what it is. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change. With the growth mindset, what that enables you to do is look at what might be perceived as failure, but look at it as an opportunity. Your whole concept, again, coming back to the perception of things, your whole concept of failure changes, because failure isn't limited to that moment. Failure then is a stepping stool, a stepping block. Like, all right, this didn't work out, but maybe I learned some lesson here. Or maybe I learned what not to do, so the next time.
It makes you adaptive, right? It makes you
Exactly.
adaptive. And that's the adaptive mindset, that when you're faced with adversity, you know, negativity only has one door. You know, being negative and telling yourself, okay, it's over, I can't do this.
Exactly.
It only has one door. But positivity, I mean, the possibilities are endless. There's so many doors to positivity. And, you know, there's this concept called the thought action repertoire, where, you know, we have a choice when we're faced with adversity to be hopeful or to despair, right? And hope in the brain causes an urge to learn, you know, to come out. So we're urged to learn and to explore and to experiment. Okay, this didn't work. All right. If I was to go through the negativity door, I'm going to say it's over. If it didn't work, right, and I had hope, I'd be like, okay, this didn't work, maybe this will work. And, you know, at the same time, my brain will recognize that I tried to find a way around. Maybe if this fails too, there's another way. And my brain subconsciously starts thinking of that. And as a result of that urge to learn, obviously we get more resources as part of our intellectual capacity, right? So our brain learns, and then intelligence is, you know, the ability to take some knowledge and to apply it, right? And so positivity allows our brain to do that and not close itself down. And you mentioned tunnel vision, right? Like, it narrows our negativity, will narrow our view to one door, as I was saying. You know, whereas positivity opens so many doors, so many possibilities. One failure could, you know, maybe you leave that thing altogether and you go to an altogether separate thing that may be better. Or maybe you didn't get the job, right?
Yeah.
But maybe that was better for you. Maybe that was, you know, maybe a sign from, you know, from the Almighty that perhaps this job wasn't the best. And then you land, and there's so many stories, right, where people, they go forward not letting themselves get down, not letting themselves or become overcome with the negative emotions of life.
It goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is that if you've trained your brain to look at things a certain way, then these things that you're describing, they become, it's like you don't even have to try to achieve it, right? You don't have to try to be positive. You've done it so much already. Your brain automatically resorts to that. And like everyone goes through tough times. And everyone, you know, it's easy to fall into that despair. But the reason why, like, for me, even when I think about, you know, any tough time, you know, that I might have ever gone through in life, the one thing which, and this is why I love Islam as a religion, because as a way of life, it's so positive, and it sort of fosters positivity, because God says in the Holy Quran that with ease there is with hardship there is ease. And that always stuck with me. And in moments where, you know, it could have been that, oh, you know what, all right, I give up, right? There's no point in holding out any hope, or whatever the situation might be. But knowing that, okay, if you're going through a tough time, if you're resilient through it, if you grind through it, you get through it the right way, right, with a positive outlook, then there's a promise that with hardship there is ease. And then there's people, especially, you know, with the younger generation, but not limited, anyone might think, you know what, I deserve this, right? If something's going wrong in life, or if something's not going according to plan, it's like, yeah, I deserve it. You know, I'm a horrible person. I've done such and such bad things and this and that, you know, thinking to yourself. But God says, don't despair of his mercy. His mercy encompasses everything. Like, think of how hopeful of a message, how positive a message that is. That, yeah, okay, everyone messes up. Everyone might have slipped up here and there, whatever the case might be. But instead of thinking, you know what, this is who I am, the fixed mindset, can't do anything about it, God promotes the growth mindset. Says, don't ever think that this is it, this is who you are, and that you can't get better. There's always room for growth. There's always room for improvement. And God says that safety net, that environment is there for you to do it, because his mercy is there. So if you take that step, and if you take that positive step towards trying to better yourself, then all the tools, all the facilities, all the, abilities in the world are there for every single person equally to have that mindset, use it, and propel themselves to betterment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, the advantages and the impact of positivity on your life, it begins to shine right away. Like you'll see that having a positive outlook, you'll become more energetic. You'll have more energy, right, to do, because your brain is exploring more possibilities and it gives you more energy to explore them, right? And you become more productive, right? Employers, they're always looking for more positive people. And if you look at like the rates of the way, salesmen, they're very insistent. They fail so many times, but the best salesmen are those who are positive, and they outperform those who, become negative, and then they have to bring themselves up. Whereas positivity becomes like that trampoline that keeps you going up. And I guess this is a good place where, we can talk about now. And I think our listeners have been waiting for what we're bringing to the table about what are we supposed to do in our lives to bring about positivity? How do we create positivity? How do we become supercharged? So
yeah, for everyone, different things might work, and everyone has different ways of operating and different methods. But, there's certain things that, can help, and maybe just understanding or having that, certain outlook or way of thinking. One of the things that can help, and that it's sort of more about understanding how things work. So there's this thing called cognitive behavioral therapy. And basically the premise of that is that thoughts lead to emotions, which lead to actions. So it all starts with reframing our thoughts. It's sort of going back to what we were talking about at the beginning. Just make this conscious effort. Make this conscious effort that I'm going to think positively. Rather than thinking that I failed, you think that this didn't work out, but it's an opportunity to learn.
You reframe it basically,
exactly.
Right? It's reframing your perspective.
So basically think about it as taking control of situations. Don't let situations take control of you, because then if you think about it positively, you're going to feel positively about it, and then your actions are going to be positive as well, right? So now, but put that into reverse. If you have negative thoughts, you're going to have negative emotions, which are then going to lead to negative actions. So if you're able to really, reframe any sort, be very deliberate about, situations that you're in, and making sure that, you think about it in a way that's positive. It reminds me of like this concept where, in prayer, right? One of the sort of ways of like praying really fervently is to cry in prayer. But, it's not always easy to do. But one of the ways which the founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, peace be upon him, he said that, sometimes because your outer state impacts your inner state. So even if you make a face that resembles crying, even though you might not be necessarily feeling it, but because that physical action can then have an impact on your emotional state. Yeah. And that then can lead to it becoming more of a natural thing as with progression. It's almost like the same concept here, where even though you might not want to think positively, or it might not be easy to think positively in a certain moment, just do it. Yeah. Just force it. Because what's the worst that's going to come out of positive thinking? So, have that positive thought, it'll lead to positive emotions and then positive actions.
You can't necessarily control every situation, but you can control your perspective.
Exactly.
Right? So what you do have control over, you can frame that. Yeah. Right? And I think that controlling your perspective is really important. It'll give you control over your life, right? And one of the things that I think people sort of fall into is when they fail, they beat themselves up. So another way to stay positive is to show like self-compassion. Be compassionate towards yourself, right? A lot of times, I was reading, just researching for material, and I was reading a psychologist wrote that show yourself kindness and give yourself advice as though you'd be advising a friend. And so, you think objectively about a situation when your friend comes to you. Yeah. They're like, yo, I'm going through this. Yeah, I crashed the car. What do I do? Or, I messed up somewhere. You take a step back because you're not going through that, right? So you're able to think about it and give your friend advice in a way that is helpful for him or her. And then they'll take that advice with them. Yeah. But if you just apply that same principle to yourself, right?
Just take your own advice.
Yeah, just take your own advice, but be kind to yourself, be friendly to yourself.
Give yourself some grace.
Yes, exactly. And take a step back, separate yourself from the situation, look at it objectively, and then, take a breather, and then give yourself good advice. Give yourself objective advice that's going to get you out and resolve the matter.
Honestly, that can be, it's easier said than done, right?
Yeah, it's
a hard one. But then I think one of the ways that you can sort of get yourself to that place is surrounding yourself with positivity.
Yeah.
Surrounding yourself with positive thinking people, right? Because if you're going to be around other people who are also going to, think negatively, or maybe, even they're putting you down, right? It's hard to think well of yourself or think good about yourself. We're human after all, right? If the people around you aren't very positive about you, it's hard to be positive about yourself. So surround yourself with positive people so that you can be in a place of, giving yourself that grace, giving yourself that ability to be like, okay, maybe I didn't make the best decision. Maybe I didn't, do the best thing. But that doesn't mean that's the end all be all, right? I can work towards something better. But having that positive group around you, having positive friends, just generally positive environments that for yourself will breed positivity. I think that's another important aspect, making sure that you're surrounding yourself with positivity.
Yeah, so many studies show that your immediate circle of people, whether it's your family, your friends, they have a huge impact on you, right? And so if they're more positive, they're more supporting. Look at your family. Look at your your siblings, your parents, your spouse, your children. Are they building you up or are they breaking you down? And I would even extend this to not just people, but I would extend it to our environment. When we're negative, we're caught like staying in bed for longer. We're caught, not turning on the lights, like staying in darkness.
Yes, it's just not a very conducive environment to thinking positively.
So turn the lights on, open the curtains, get some sunlight, get some vitamin D, right? And that's going to help a lot. And this is where, a positive environment will prevent you from rumination, which is just thinking constantly over and over about.
Yeah, that's a killer.
Yeah. You're just thinking constantly over and over about it, and you're not getting over it, right? And so what positivity, again, we've talked about this, but what positivity does is it gives you a chance to get out of that loop, right? And there are there's various things that you can do if you feel that you're in this loop. You can exercise, you can do something that distracts you from that, gives you a moment of relief so you can think and, become, I guess, more aware of the situation objectively to find a better solution.
And even in finding that relief, like that relief should be something that's also going to breed positivity. Because a lot of times it's because of being in a negative situation, negative state, that people will resort to what will be outlets or releases or substances or whatever the case might be to sort of get away from that negativity. And that might be like, okay, well, I'm going to feel more positive after I do it. Okay, but then in the long run, is that something which is a positive habit? Is it building positivity physically? Is it building, substance abuse, alcohol, whatever the case might be? These sorts of things, when have they ever helped, in the long run with your physical health, right? These are things which ultimately deteriorate your health. So in order to get away from negativity to what is perceived positivity for a moment in time, you're setting yourself up for even more negativity. As opposed to, for example, if you're feeling down, right? Maybe go for a walk, right? Go out, get some fresh air, right? Something that doesn't require much effort at all, right? Doesn't require any equipment, doesn't require any money. You just go for a walk and you've, got some fresh air. You've gotten out of that darkness, that closed environment. So, that'll help as well. And then another thing is acts of kindness. Doing things that are positive will help you with your own positivity, because acts of kindness, boost your dopamine, which naturally leads you towards being more positive. And it's like this 2-in-1 example that I think of, which is really amazing, where once the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he was helping this elderly lady carry her groceries. And, she's, oh, you're such a nice young man. Let me give you some advice. She didn't know who this person was, by the way, who was helping her, just, a friendly neighbor. And she said that, oh, there's this person, he's named Muhammad, and there's this and that, and all these false, things that the opponents had spread about him. So stay away from him. And now he's listening to this and he's helping her. And he says, you know, that I'm Muhammad, right? Now, in that moment, he could have been like, oh, forget this. I'm not going to help this lady. She thinks negatively about me. But he continued this act of kindness. He had a positive mindset. And look, that positive mindset had an impact on that lady as well, and then led to her. So positivity, like you said, begets positivity. So acts of kindness. And then the last thing that I would say, at least from my end, is something we touched on a little bit, but gratitude.
Gratitude's huge, yeah.
Gratitude will change your perspective on everything. There's always something to be grateful for. In every situation, find something to be grateful for. Let's say you're even having an argument with someone, right? Someone you love. And you know you're at each other's throats or whatever the case might be. But if you take a step back and say, at least I have someone. At least I have someone here who's with me, who's leveling with me, who's in it with me for the long haul. What about those people out there who don't have, who are alone, right? It's something so simple, but it's just finding that centering place of gratitude, right? You know, sure, you might be facing some financial trouble, and that's tough. It's really hard, especially in today's day and age in the economy, right? But health, that means something. What about the people who don't have health? And the people who have health, what about the people who don't have wealth, right? There's always something to be grateful for. So if you find that, you know, people do gratitude journals all the time, right? That's a good practice. Just find something, that positive aspect, something to be grateful for. And just automatically, again, those neural pathways that you're going to be building are just going to lead to more positivity in the future.
Yeah, I think gratitude is so ingrained in my faith. Like, you know, I remember that one saying where a believer can find contentment in a hut that a wealthy person can't find in a, you know, in the largest of castles and, you know, fortresses. So I think that gratitude is really important because, you know, not in every single situation, but in most situations, what you can do is you can think about somebody who's in a, you know, in a lesser state than you, and that'll give you a better chance to really like put into perspective what you have, you know, in your life. And
yeah, even the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that look at those who are beneath you, right? In the sense of like, look at what you have. Like, no matter how, you know, deprived you might think you are or something, there's always someone who's going to be, you know, in a less fortunate position than you. So take that and not only just, you know, take that as a, you know, a point of gratefulness, but we talked about acts of kindness. Then again, that positive mindset, be like, okay, you know, I'm grateful for what I have. And then let me help those who don't have maybe what I have. Acts of kindness, that leads to positivity. Positivity then leads to a positive mindset for yourself. That leads to more success for you in all other facets of life. So thinking positively, having a positive outlook, being positive, doing positive things, they're all they're all connected, they're all related, and it just leads to a more, positive life, right? And who doesn't want that?
And you know, we've been talking about positivity so much, and I don't want our viewers to think, and our listeners, that that you have to force yourself to be positive in every situation, right? Like, there's this thing called toxic positivity, where you force yourself, no matter what's going on, to be positive, right? Whether it's, you know, a period of grief where it's actually okay to be upset with, you know, if the passing of a family member, or, you know, the occurrence of a huge loss, right? It's, you know, positivity doesn't mean that you're ignoring negativity,
or you
right?
neglecting any other emotion.
You're not. Positivity is not like an escape, right? It's recognizing again that something happened. It's hard.
It's a way
right?
of life.
It's difficult. Yeah. Positivity.
Right?
Yeah. Again, it's a way of life, and it's, you know, I remember as a child, when we would clean our rooms, we would like brush everything under the bed. We would like stuff everything in the closet, right? Or put, you know, things under the rug. Right?
Maybe I still do that.
Yeah. But, you know, in retrospect, that doesn't make those things go away, right? They're still there. And at the end, that's going to cause actually greater suffering, because that's going to spill over or something's going to happen. So, you know, true positivity, and, you know, as opposed to toxic positivity, is when you're grounded in reality, when you have realistic, you know, goals, realistic outlook as to what the result is going to be, right? And you're also looking at things, you're not ignoring the negativity. Negativity, again, it has a function. It serves a function. If we're upset, right? that's telling us that something in our life is wrong, right?
Look, every emotion, every feeling has its time and its place. You're not gonna, if someone's grieving, you're like, all right, it's all good, no worries,
Exactly,
everything's
exactly.
you gotta read the room, so to speak. Yeah. But again, being sad doesn't mean that you are negative. Yes. That means that you are sort of whatever that situation calls for. You're being emotionally aware. Like we have these. Positivity is not a suppression.
Yeah,
of other emotions.
don't make it an
As you're
avoidance
saying,
mechanism.
exactly.
Yeah.
Positivity is a way of looking at things. Positivity is that, yes, there are going to be moments of grief in life. Loss is something which is inevitable, right? What do they say? Like death and taxes, these things, they're coming, right? They're coming for you. So, but positivity, having a positive mindset, having a positive way of life can help you come out of that sadness. Because what happens is sometimes some people might find themselves in that period of sadness and they're not able to get out. Yeah. But if you are overall positive and you are overall always looking for that positive, outlook on things, then even in those moments that call for maybe sadness, maybe call for grief, or whatever the case might be, then once you allow yourself to have that, then you can get out of that in a healthy way. Through a positive.
Yeah, you don't want to get trapped, obviously,
exactly.
right? Trapped in grief, and so some people unfortunately do get trapped in that. And what that leads to is, I guess the last thing that I would say, as far as being aware of this sort of toxic positivity as an avoidance mechanism, what it does is it causes us to make bad decisions. If you're overly optimistic about something, what you're telling your brain is you're almost certain that you're going to get a specific outcome, right? Whether you're investing money or whatever you're doing, if you're making a big life decision, if you're not cautious about the risks, don't ignore the risks, account for the risks, and then make a plan accordingly. Being overly positive is going to prevent you from making a plan, and then prevent you from making a plan B, because you're so sure that plan A is going to work, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's going to train you to think in a way where no matter what I do, I'm unstoppable. And then you fail and you're like, no, this is great. This failure, it's not going to stop me. And you continue to make bad decisions and you go on this,
It's like you never say no to a kid, right? And you get whatever they want. They're never going to know what the other side is. They're never going to have that awareness. It's by not having something go your way, you can appreciate it more when it does go your way. It's like we have, the different seasons, right? The winter helps you appreciate the summer. And then sometimes when the summer gets so hot, you're like, the fall might not be so bad, right? It's, again, gratitude, appreciation, perspective, all of these things can always apply. And then for me, it's, I think the best, because sometimes it's what you put out there that, comes back to you. Yeah. So in a way. And there's this one saying where God said to the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, that I am to my servant as my servant perceives me to be. Mm-hmm. So if you perceive God to be, positive, and when we pray to God, when we look to God and turn to God, we do it with this sense of, no, you know what? I have firm faith that God has power over all things. I put my trust in God. God, will help me through this. Yeah. Then God said himself, I am as you perceive me.
Yeah, he's going to manifest in the way that you...
So positivity then in that scenario as well goes such a long way to benefit us. And you apply that to every other facet of life. You put positivity out there, positivity will come back to you. And even in moments that are less than positive, and even in moments where you have to let yourself feel, those emotions. We have all these emotions. They need to, all valid at the right time in the right place. But that overall underlying positivity that you have will help you in the long run, and give you a positive life.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way of summing today's discussion. And one thing that I take away from my faith is we look at the benefits of everything and take the good of everything and leave the bad. And we there's so many benefits to positivity. And right at the end, we mentioned that. There's some benefit to negativity as well. There's a function to it that we must utilize in order to be successful. So don't, completely take negativity or negative emotions out of your life, right? Use them to their function. Don't get stuck in them. and then obviously utilize positivity to its fullest. So, I think this was a really good discussion, and I encourage our viewers, listeners, tell us in the comments, what you resonated with most. If you had any questions, concerns, if you didn't like our puns,
No, don't tell us that.
don't tell us that.
No. Because everyone liked them. So.
Yeah, that's true. Let us know about future topics that you want us to discuss. If there's something, obviously we do have plans, but if you have something that you feel is pressing, definitely let us know, and we'll be sure to bring it to this table. Not literally, but you know what I mean.
Okay, you can say that was a bad one.
Yeah. I think now's the time to
we should wrap this up.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Grow.